The old grandfather clock in the hall chimed a melancholic 12, each gong echoing through the silent house like a ghostly footfall. Rain lashed against the Gothic windows of Blackwood Manor, a relentless drumming that seemed to claw at the very stones of the ancient edifice. Inside, Elara, a paranormal investigator with eyes that missed nothing and a spirit that rarely wavered, huddled deeper into her worn leather armchair. The flickering gaslight cast long, dancing shadows, turning familiar shapes into menacing figures. She was here because of the whispers that clung to Blackwood Manor like the ivy that choked its walls. Whispers of unexplained chills, of objects moving on their own, and most disturbingly, of a woman's sorrowful cries echoing from the long-abandoned West Wing. Local legend painted a grim picture, a young bride, Eliza, who vanished without a trace on her wedding night a century ago, leaving behind a heartbroken groom and a legacy of haunting. Elara didn't believe in ghosts in the traditional sense. She believed in residual energy, in places where trauma and emotion were so potent they imprinted themselves onto the fabric of reality. Blackwood Manor felt thick with such imprints. Tonight, however, felt different. The air was heavy, charged with an almost palpable sense of dread. Even her usually unflappable assistant, Ben, a tech whiz more comfortable with circuit boards than spectral sightings, looked pale and kept glancing nervously at the shadows. "Anything on the sensors, Ben?" Elara asked, her voice a low murmur that barely cut through the storm's fury. Ben shook his head, his gaze fixed on the laptop screen, displaying a grid of static feeds from cameras placed throughout the West Wing. "Nothing consistent, Elara. Just fluctuations. Spikes in EMF, but they're erratic. Almost organic. The word sent a shiver down Elara's spine. It wasn't the cold of the drafty manor. It was something deeper, primal. They had been in the West Wing earlier, a decaying labyrinth of dust-choked rooms and cobweb-draped furniture. The silence there was oppressive, broken only by the creaking of the floorboards under their feet and the frantic thumping of their own hearts. It was there, in what was believed to have been Eliza's bridal chamber, that Elara had felt it, a profound sense of sadness, a lingering despair that clung to the air like a shroud. As the night deepened, the activity in the manor intensified. Doors creaked open and shut with no discernible cause. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways. A faint floral scent, like decaying lilies, drifted through the air, only to vanish as quickly as it appeared. Then came the whispers. Faint at first, like the rustling of silk, they grew in intensity, swirling around them, just beyond the threshold of comprehension. Ben's face was etched with fear. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Elara nodded, her senses on high alert. The whispers seemed to be coming from the grand ballroom, a vast, cavernous space where the dust lay thick on the forgotten grandeur. They moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The ballroom felt colder than the rest of the house, the air thick and still. In the center of the room, a grand chandelier, its crystals long since dulled, swayed gently, though there was no breeze. Suddenly, a single, mournful sob echoed through the silence. It was undeniably human, filled with an anguish that tugged at Elara's soul. "Eliza!" Elara called out, her voice barely a whisper. The sobbing ceased, replaced by an unnerving silence. Then, a faint light flickered at the far end of the ballroom, near a large, ornate mirror that leaned against the wall, its silvered surface clouded with age. They approached slowly, their hearts pounding in unison. As they drew closer, the light intensified, revealing not a natural source, but a soft, ethereal glow emanating from the mirror itself. Within its depths a figure began to coalesce, a woman in a tattered white gown, her face pale and sorrowful, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. It was Eliza. Elara felt a wave of empathy wash over her, so potent it almost knocked her off her feet. This wasn't just residual energy. This was something more, something trapped. "Eliza," Elara said softly, reaching out a hand towards the mirror. "We're here to help you." The figure in the mirror didn't respond, but her gaze locked onto Elara's, a silent plea in her spectral eyes. Then the whispers returned, swirling around them, more insistent now, more coherent. They spoke of a betrayal, a secret hidden within the manor, a promise broken. They spoke of a locket, a symbol of love, lost and forgotten. Ben, meanwhile, had been frantically scanning the mirror with a handheld device. Elara, the energy readings around this mirror are off the charts. It's like it's a gateway. A gateway to what? Elara wondered, her mind racing. Following the whispers, they began to search the ballroom. Ben used his equipment to detect any anomalies, while Elara relied on her intuition, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Behind a loose tapestry depicting a hunting scene, Ben discovered a small wooden box. It was intricately carved and covered in a thick layer of dust. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a silver locket. It was heart-shaped and engraved with the initials E and R. As Elara picked up the locket, a wave of energy pulsed from it, and the image in the mirror shimmered. Eliza's spectral hand reached out, as if trying to grasp the locket. R. Robert. The whisper was clearer now, laced with a heartbreaking longing. Suddenly, a hidden compartment within the box sprang open, revealing a small, folded piece of parchment. Elara carefully unfolded it. The ink was faded, but the handwriting was elegant and legible. It was a letter, written by Eliza to her beloved Robert, the groom who was left behind. The letter spoke of a secret pregnancy, of her fear and shame, and of her plan to leave Blackwood Manor temporarily to protect Robert's reputation. She promised to return, to explain everything, and begged him to keep their locket safe as a symbol of their enduring love. But she never returned. The local legend, Elara realized with a chilling certainty, was wrong. Eliza hadn't vanished. She had left, intending to come back. Something must have happened to her. As Elara read the final, tear-stained words of the letter, the image in the mirror began to fade. Eliza's sorrowful expression softened, replaced by a faint, almost hopeful glimmer. "She needs peace," Elara murmured, clutching the locket and the letter. "She needs her story to be told." They spent the next few days delving into local archives and historical records. They discovered a tragic account of a carriage accident a few miles from Blackwood Manor on the very night of Eliza's supposed disappearance. The description of the woman in the report matched Eliza perfectly. She had been traveling under a different name, likely to conceal her pregnancy. Armed with this new information, Elara and Ben returned to Blackwood Manor. They placed the locket and the letter near the mirror in the ballroom. As they did so, a wave of warmth filled the cold room. The ethereal glow from the mirror intensified, and Eliza's image reappeared, clearer and more vibrant than before. This time, there was no sadness in her eyes, only a profound sense of peace. She smiled, a radiant, ethereal smile that seemed to illuminate the entire ballroom. Then, slowly, she began to fade, the light around her dimming until the mirror reflected only their own faces. The whispers were gone. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted. Blackwood Manor felt lighter, as if a great weight had been removed. Elara knew that Eliza's spirit had finally found rest, her story finally brought to light. But as they packed their equipment, Ben noticed something unusual about the mirror. The clouded surface had cleared, revealing a reflection that was slightly off. In addition to their own reflections, they could see a faint, shimmering image behind them. A young woman in a white gown, her hand outstretched, a look of gentle gratitude on her face. As they watched, the image slowly began to solidify, becoming more real, more tangible. The air crackled with energy, and the floral scent of lilies returned, stronger this time, but not of decay, but of fresh blossoms. Suddenly, the figure stepped out of the mirror. She was no longer a spectral image, but a woman of flesh and blood, radiant and beautiful, wearing a white gown that shimmered with an otherworldly light. Elara and Ben stared in stunned silence. "Eliza?" Elara whispered, hardly daring to breathe. The woman smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that filled the room with warmth. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft and melodious. "You have freed me. But how?" Elara's mind reeled. This wasn't just a spirit finding peace. This was something more. Eliza took a step towards them, her eyes filled with a gentle light. "The love that was lost has been found," she said. "And in that finding, a miracle has occurred." As she spoke, a faint golden glow emanated from her, bathing the ballroom in a warm, ethereal light. Elara felt a sense of awe and wonder wash over her, a feeling she had rarely experienced in her years of investigating the paranormal. Then, Eliza turned her gaze towards the large, ornate mirror. It shimmered once more, and within its depths, another figure began to appear. A young man, his face etched with a century of sorrow, but now filled with an overwhelming joy. "Robert," Eliza whispered, her voice filled with love. The man stepped out of the mirror, his eyes locking with Eliza's. A moment of breathless silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of their soft gasps. Then they rushed towards each other, embracing in the center of the ballroom, their forms shimmering with the same golden light. Elara and Ben watched, tears welling up in their eyes as the two lovers, separated by tragedy and time, were finally reunited. It was a miracle, a testament to the enduring power of love. But as Robert and Eliza held each other close, their forms began to fade, the golden light dimming. They turned towards Elara and Ben, their eyes filled with gratitude. "You have given us peace," Robert said, his voice echoing softly. "And for that, we are eternally grateful." Then, with a final, loving glance at each other, they vanished completely, leaving behind only the faint scent of lilies and a profound sense of wonder. Elara and Ben stood in the silent ballroom, the grand chandeliers still swaying gently, the dust motes dancing in the faint moonlight that now streamed through the cleared windows. They had come seeking a ghost, a haunting, but they had found something far more profound. A love story that transcended time and a miracle that defied explanation. As they finally left Blackwood Manor, stepping out into the now calm night, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they had witnessed something truly extraordinary, something that would forever change their understanding of the paranormal. The drive back to their small, cluttered office felt strangely subdued. The adrenaline that had coursed through them during the investigation had ebbed, replaced by a quiet awe and a lingering sense of the impossible. The rain had stopped, leaving the night air clean and crisp, the stars beginning to pepper the inky sky. Ben, usually the one to break the silence with a barrage of technical analysis and bewildered questions, remained uncharacteristically quiet, his gaze fixed on the passing trees. Elara, too, was lost in thought, replaying the events of the night in her mind. The spectral figures, the letter, the reunion. It felt less like a paranormal investigation and more like witnessing a scene from a forgotten fairy tale. "Ben," Elara finally said, her voice soft, "what do you make of it?" He sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "Make of it? Elara, I've seen electromagnetic fields fluctuate, heard unexplained noises, even captured some hazy figures on infrared. But that was different. Tangible. Real. The energy readings around the mirror were unlike anything I've ever recorded," he continued, shaking his head in disbelief. "It was as if it was drawing power from somewhere or someone. Do you think they're truly at peace?" Elara asked, her gaze drifting towards the rearview mirror, as if she might catch a glimpse of the long-lost lovers. Ben hesitated. Logically, yes. Their story was told, their love acknowledged. But that whisper at the end. A shiver ran down his spine. It felt ominous. They arrived at their office, a converted attic space above a dusty antique shop. The familiar clutter of EMF readers, thermal cameras, and spectral analysis software felt strangely ordinary after the extraordinary events they had just experienced. Elara immediately began to review the footage from the night, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The video was grainy in places, the gaslight casting strange distortions. But the key moments were captured. The ethereal glow from the mirror, the coalescing figures of Eliza and Robert, their tearful embrace. As she reached the end of the footage, the moment Eliza and Robert vanished, she paused. There was something, a flicker of movement in the reflection of the mirror just before they disappeared, something she hadn't noticed in the heat of the moment. She rewound the footage, watching it again and again, her brow furrowed in concentration. There it was, a fleeting shadow, indistinct but undeniably present, moving behind Eliza and Robert in the mirror's reflection. It was tall and gaunt, its form vaguely humanoid but distorted, as if seen through rippling water. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the golden light emanating from the reunited lovers. Reunited lovers? Elara felt a knot of unease tighten in her stomach. What was that shadow? It hadn't felt malevolent, but its presence at such a pivotal moment was unsettling. "Ben, come look at this," she called out, her voice tight. Ben peered over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he watched the replay. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," Elara said, her mind racing. It was in the reflection, behind them. Almost like it was being pushed back. Pushed back by what? Ben asked, his voice a low murmur. "By their love?" Elara offered, though the explanation felt flimsy even to her own ears. Over the next few days, they meticulously analyzed every piece of evidence they had collected. The EMF spikes around the mirror remained unexplained. The floral scent of lilies occasionally lingered in the office, a faint but persistent reminder of Blackwood Manor. They also delved deeper into the history of the Blackwood family, searching for any mention of other tragedies or unexplained events. They found nothing that directly connected to the shadow they had seen in the mirror. The video footage of Eliza and Robert's reunion was compelling, almost undeniably genuine. Elara knew that if they released it, it would indeed go viral. But the appearance of the shadowy figure troubled her. It felt like an unfinished piece of the puzzle, a lingering question mark hanging over their miraculous experience. Despite her reservations, the sheer power of the love story they had witnessed, the undeniable sense of peace that had settled over Blackwood Manor, urged her to share their findings. People needed to see this, to believe that even in the darkest of places, hope and love could triumph. They decided to release a carefully edited version of the video, focusing on the reunion of Eliza and Robert, omitting the fleeting glimpse of the shadow. Elara felt a pang of guilt at withholding information, but she couldn't explain the shadow, and she didn't want to detract from the beauty and hope of the central narrative. The video exploded online. It was shared millions of times, sparking discussions about love, loss, and the possibility of miracles. People were moved by Eliza and Robert's story, finding solace and hope in their long-awaited reunion. Elara and Ben were hailed as groundbreaking paranormal investigators who had captured irrefutable proof of the power of love. But amidst the accolades and the viral fame, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of the mystery surrounding Blackwood Manor. The shadow in the mirror haunted her thoughts, a silent question mark in their otherwise miraculous conclusion. A few weeks later, they received an email from a woman claiming to be a descendant of the Blackwood family. Her name was Eleanor, and she had seen their video. She wrote of a recurring nightmare that had plagued her family for generations. A dream of a tall, gaunt figure lurking in the shadows of Blackwood Manor, a figure that seemed to feed on sorrow and despair. Eleanor's description sent a chill down Elara's spine. It matched the shadow in the mirror. She felt a sudden, urgent need to return to Blackwood Manor, to understand the nature of this shadowy presence and its connection to the manor's tragic history. They contacted Eleanor, and she readily agreed to accompany them back to Blackwood. She was a frail, elderly woman, her eyes filled with a deep sadness that seemed to mirror the manor itself. As they stood in the grand ballroom once more, the air felt different. The lightness they had experienced after Eliza and Robert's reunion was gone, replaced by a subtle undercurrent of unease. The floral scent of lilies was absent. Eleanor walked slowly towards the ornate mirror, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch its surface. "He's still here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can feel him." Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. A cold gust of wind swept through the ballroom, extinguishing their lanterns and plunging them into darkness. A low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows. Fear gripped Elara's heart, a primal fear unlike anything she had felt before. This was not the lingering sadness of Eliza. This was something ancient and malevolent. Ben fumbled for his flashlight, his hand shaking. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but the familiar shapes of the decaying ballroom. But the growling persisted, closer now, seemingly coming from the mirror itself. Then the mirror began to glow with an eerie, sickly green light. The shadowy figure Elara had glimpsed in the video began to coalesce within its depths, no longer fleeting but solid, terrifyingly real. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and its gaunt face was contorted in a silent snarl. Eleanor gasped, stumbling backward. "The Sorrow Eater," she whispered, her voice filled with terror. The legend, it's true. The Sorrow Eater. Local folklore spoke of a malevolent entity that fed on the negative emotions associated with Blackwood Manor, growing stronger with each tragedy, each heartbreak. It was said to be drawn to places of intense suffering, trapping lost souls, and perpetuating the cycle of despair. Elara realized with a sickening jolt that Eliza and Robert's love, their powerful reunion, had not banished this entity. It had merely been pushed back, weakened, but not destroyed. And now, drawn by their return and Eleanor's inherited sorrow, it was back, stronger than ever. The Sorrow Eater reached out a long, skeletal hand from the mirror, its touch sending a wave of icy cold through the room. Ben cried out as an invisible force slammed him against the wall. "We have to get out of here," Elara yelled, grabbing Eleanor's arm. But the ballroom door slammed shut with a resounding boom, and the green light from the mirror intensified, casting long, distorted shadows that danced around them like mocking specters. They were trapped. Elara knew that conventional paranormal investigation techniques wouldn't work against something like this. This wasn't a ghost. It was something far more ancient, more sinister. Then her gaze fell upon the silver locket, still lying on the floor where they had placed it. Eliza's love, the catalyst for the miracle. Could it also be their defense? Eleanor, can you feel their presence here? Elara asked urgently. Eliza and Robert? Eleanor closed her eyes, her face pale. Faintly, like a whisper on the wind. We need to focus on their love, on the joy of their reunion, Elara said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. That's what weakened it before. We need to amplify that. She picked up the locket, its smooth silver surface cold against her skin. She closed her eyes, trying to recall the image of Eliza and Robert's embrace, the radiant golden light that had filled the ballroom. Ben, though clearly terrified, understood. He began to speak of their story, his voice trembling at first but gaining strength as he recounted their tragic separation and their miraculous reunion. Eleanor joined in, her voice filled with a newfound hope, speaking of the enduring power of love that transcended even death. As they spoke, the green light from the mirror flickered and the Sorrow Eater recoiled slightly, its red eyes dimming. The oppressive cold in the room began to recede. Elara held the locket aloft, focusing all her energy on the image of Eliza and Robert's love. She could almost feel their presence, a faint warmth emanating from the locket. Suddenly, a beam of golden light erupted from the locket, striking the mirror directly. The Sorrow Eater shrieked, a sound that seemed to tear at the very fabric of reality, and its form began to dissipate, the sickly green light fading. The ballroom doors creaked open, and a gentle breeze swept through the room, carrying the faint but unmistakable scent of lilies. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted once more, replaced by a sense of peace, stronger and more profound than before. The mirror now reflected only their own faces, clear and untroubled. The Sorrow Eater was gone. Elara knew that the entity might not be gone forever, that darkness often lurked in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to resurface. But for now, Blackwood Manor was at peace, cleansed by the enduring power of a love that had defied time and even death itself. They had faced not just a haunting, but a battle between love and sorrow, and love had prevailed. The miracle of Eliza and Robert's reunion had not only freed their souls, but had also weakened the darkness that had clung to Blackwood Manor for so long. Their story, now known to the world, was a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of love in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The drive away from Blackwood Manor this time felt truly different. The oppressive weight that had clung to the place, the lingering sense of sorrow, had vanished. The air felt lighter, the night sky seemed brighter. Even Eleanor, sitting quietly in the back seat, seemed to carry a burden lifted from her shoulders. Back at their office, the familiar clutter no longer felt ordinary, but rather like a comforting anchor to reality after the extraordinary events they had witnessed. The scent of lilies, faint but persistent for days after their first visit, had finally faded completely. They reviewed the footage from their second visit. The chilling green glow of the mirror, the terrifying form of the Sorrow Eater, Ben's desperate struggle against an unseen force. It was all captured on camera. And then, the beam of golden light from the locket, the entity's shriek, its gradual dissipation. It was undeniable proof of something beyond conventional understanding. "We have to release this, Elara," Ben said, his voice filled with a newfound conviction. "People need to see what else is out there. Not just the sadness, but the power of what we witnessed." Elara nodded, a sense of purpose settling within her. The first video had touched hearts and sparked belief in the power of love. This second part would reveal the darkness that love had overcome, adding another layer to their incredible story. They carefully edited the new footage, ensuring the terrifying presence of the Sorrow Eater was clearly visible, followed by the beam of light and its subsequent demise. They decided to include Eleanor's testimony, her family's history with the entity, adding a crucial layer of context to the events. The release of the second video sent shockwaves through the online community. The initial wonder and romanticism surrounding Eliza and Robert's story were now intertwined with a sense of awe and a healthy dose of fear. The existence of the Sorrow Eater, this entity that fed on negative emotions, was both terrifying and strangely compelling. Skeptics emerged, as always, but the compelling visual evidence, coupled with Eleanor's heartfelt account, swayed many. The story of Blackwood Manor became a legend, a testament to the enduring power of love in the face of unimaginable darkness. Life for Elara and Ben changed dramatically. They received countless emails and messages from people sharing their own paranormal experiences, seeking their help. or simply expressing their disbelief and fascination. They were invited to speak at conferences, interviewed on television, and even approached by authors and filmmakers eager to tell their story. But amidst this newfound fame, Elara felt a growing sense of responsibility. They had opened a door to a world beyond the veil, a world that was both wondrous and potentially dangerous. The existence of the Sorrow Eater proved that not all paranormal entities were benign or simply trapped souls longing for peace. Some were malevolent, feeding on human suffering. They decided to use their platform to educate people about the complexities of the paranormal, urging caution and respect when dealing with the unknown. They continued to investigate other cases, but with a more discerning eye, aware of the potential for darker forces at play. Eleanor, freed from the recurring nightmares that had plagued her family for generations, became a close friend. She often visited their office, sharing more of her family's history and the legends surrounding Blackwood Manor. She spoke of other entities that were said to reside within its walls, some benevolent, others less so. One evening, as they were discussing an old map of the manor that Eleanor had brought, Ben noticed a series of symbols etched into the margins, symbols that didn't appear to be part of the architectural plans. They were intricate and unfamiliar, almost ancient. "Do you know what these are, Eleanor?" Ben asked, pointing to the symbols. Eleanor frowned, peering at the map closely. "I've seen these before in my grandmother's journals." She believed they were a form of protection, warding symbols against negative energies. "Warding symbols?" Elara echoed, her mind racing. "Do you know what they mean?" Eleanor shook her head. "My grandmother only wrote that they were powerful but dangerous if not used correctly. She warned never to tamper with them." Intrigued, Elara began researching ancient symbology, poring over dusty books and obscure texts. She discovered that the symbols bore a striking resemblance to ancient Celtic warding sigils, believed to repel malevolent spirits and negative energies. "It seems the Blackwood family knew about the darker side of the manor," Elara mused. "They tried to protect themselves." A few weeks later, they received a frantic call from a local historical society. Vandals had broken into Blackwood Manor, drawn by its newfound notoriety. They had damaged several parts of the building, including the ballroom, and had even attempted to remove the ornate mirror. Elara and Ben rushed to the manor, their hearts pounding with a sense of dread. The scene that greeted them was disheartening. Broken furniture, graffiti-covered walls, and the once pristine ballroom was now marred by destruction. But it was the state of the mirror that sent a chill down their spines. It had been partially removed from the wall, and in the process, several of the ancient symbols etched into the surrounding stonework had been chipped and damaged. As they stood in the desecrated ballroom, a wave of icy cold washed over them. The air grew heavy, and a faint green mist began to swirl near the damaged mirror. A low growl echoed through the room, familiar and terrifying. The Sorrow Eater was back, and it was stronger than before, its form more defined, its red eyes burning with malevolent fury. The disruption of the protective symbols had weakened the wards, allowing it to regain its power. "We need to get out of here," Ben whispered, his face pale with fear. But Elara stood her ground, her gaze fixed on the entity in the mirror. They had faced it once before, armed only with the power of love. This time they had knowledge, and perhaps a way to fight back. "Eleanor," Elara said, her voice firm, "do you remember anything else your grandmother wrote about those symbols? Any way to reactivate them?" Eleanor closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. After a moment, she gasped. "She wrote of a ritual, a way to restore the wards using elements of nature and focused intention. But it requires a sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Ben asked, his voice laced with apprehension. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Something of personal value, something tied to the heart of the manor's history. Elara's gaze fell upon the silver locket, still clutched in her hand. It was a symbol of Eliza and Robert's enduring love, the very thing that had weakened the Sorrow Eater before. It was also a piece of the manor's tragic history, a silent witness to their lost love. A sense of resolve hardened Elara's features. "The locket," she said, her voice steady. "It's the heart of their story. It's the sacrifice." Together, guided by Eleanor's fragmented memories of her grandmother's writings, they began to prepare the ritual. They gathered elements from the manor grounds, rainwater collected in a silver bowl, soil from the ancient gardens, petals from the last remaining lilies. As the green mist thickened and the Sorrow Eater's growls grew louder, they stood before the damaged mirror. Eleanor began to chant in a low, ancient tongue, her voice resonating with a power Elara had never heard before. Elara held the locket aloft, focusing all her will, all her belief in the enduring power of love, into the small silver object. The golden light that had emanated from it before began to glow once more, faint at first, but growing in intensity. With a deep breath, Elara cast the locket into the mirror. A blinding flash of golden light erupted, engulfing the ballroom. The Sorrow Eater shrieked, its form writhing in agony as the light struck it. The green mist dissipated, and the oppressive cold vanished. When the light faded, the mirror was clear. The Sorrow Eater was gone, seemingly banished once and for all. The damaged warding symbols around the mirror began to glow with a soft, protective light, their power restored. Blackwood Manor was finally at peace. The lovers had found their rest, and the entity that had fed on its sorrow had been vanquished. Elara, Ben, and Eleanor stood in the silent ballroom, exhausted but filled with a profound sense of closure. They had come seeking ghosts, and had found love, loss, and ultimately, a battle between light and darkness. And in the end, love, fueled by courage and sacrifice, had won. The legend of Blackwood Manor would continue, not just as a tale of tragedy, but as a testament to the enduring power of the human heart and the miracles that can bloom even in the darkest of places. The aftermath of the second confrontation with the Sorrow Eater brought a different kind of attention. The destruction at Blackwood Manor became national news, fueling further speculation and debate about the paranormal. However, this time, the narrative shifted. It wasn't just about ghosts and hauntings. It was about a battle against a malevolent entity, a fight won through courage, knowledge, and a selfless act. Elara, Ben, and Eleanor found themselves at the center of this new wave of attention. They were no longer just paranormal investigators. They were seen by some as heroes who had faced down darkness and emerged victorious. The Historical Society, with renewed interest and funding, began the painstaking process of restoring Blackwood Manor, carefully preserving the remaining warding symbols. Eleanor, having played a crucial role in the ritual, found a sense of peace she hadn't known before. The weight of her family's long history with the manor seemed to have lifted. She became an advocate for preserving historical sites and understanding the deeper energies that might reside within them. Elara and Ben, though still grounded in their scientific approach to the paranormal, couldn't deny the profound experiences they had had at Blackwood Manor. The spectral reunion of Eliza and Robert, the terrifying presence of the Sorrow Eater, and the power of the ancient warding symbols had expanded their understanding of what lay beyond the veil. They continued their investigations, but with a newfound respect for the potential dangers involved. They delved deeper into folklore and ancient beliefs, recognizing that sometimes the old stories held more truth than modern science could explain. One quiet evening in their office, surrounded by their usual equipment and now a few artifacts from Blackwood Manor, including a carefully preserved rubbing of the warding symbols, they received an anonymous package. Inside was a single antique key, intricately carved and radiating a faint, cool energy. There was no note, no indication of its origin. "What do you think this opens?" Ben asked, turning the key over in his hands. Elara examined it closely. The carving seemed to depict entwined lilies and a heart-shaped locket. A shiver ran down her spine. It felt connected to Eliza and Robert. Driven by curiosity, they returned to Blackwood Manor. The restoration was still underway, but the ballroom, with its repaired warding symbols around the now pristine mirror, felt calm and protected. Following a hunch, Elara focused on Eliza's bridal chamber, the room where they had first felt the strongest sense of sorrow. She noticed a small, almost imperceptible lockbox hidden beneath a loose floorboard. The antique key fit perfectly. Inside the lockbox, they found a small, leather-bound journal. The handwriting was delicate and faded, unmistakably Eliza's. As Elara carefully turned the brittle pages, Eliza's voice seemed to echo through the silent room. The journal chronicled Eliza's life, her love for Robert, her secret pregnancy, and the fear that had driven her to leave. But it also revealed something more. Eliza had been aware of the darker energies within Blackwood Manor. Her grandmother, it turned out, had also known about the Sorrow Eater and the warding symbols. Eliza wrote of her own attempts to understand and even strengthen the protective wards, fearing for her child's safety within the manor's walls. She had hidden the key to the lockbox, believing it held secrets that might be needed in the future. The final entry, written on the day she left Blackwood, spoke of a desperate hope for her return and a plea that their love would somehow protect their child, even in her absence. A wave of sadness washed over Elara. Eliza hadn't just been a victim of circumstance. She had been a protector, fighting against the darkness in her own way. As Elara closed the journal, a faint golden light emanated from the restored mirror in the ballroom, visible even from the bridal chamber. A feeling of warmth and profound peace filled the air, stronger than ever before. It was as if Eliza and Robert, their story finally fully revealed, were offering their blessing, a final farewell filled with love and gratitude. Elara knew then that their journey with Blackwood Manor was truly over. The mysteries had been unraveled, the darkness had been vanquished, and the enduring power of love had shone through. The manor, once a place of sorrow and fear, now held a quiet sense of peace, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and the miracles that can happen when love transcends even the boundaries of life and death. They left Blackwood Manor one last time, locking the ancient doors behind them. The story of the haunted manor had become a story of hope, a viral sensation that had touched millions of hearts and opened minds to the possibility of a world beyond our understanding, a world where love could conquer even the darkest of evils. And for Elara and Ben, their work had just begun, armed with new knowledge and a deeper understanding of the unseen forces that shaped our world. The viral sensation of the Blackwood Manor story continued to ripple across the globe. Elara and Ben found themselves thrust into the limelight, fielding interview requests from around the world. Their unique blend of scientific investigation and openness to the seemingly impossible resonated with a vast audience hungry for answers about life, death, and the mysteries in between. They used their platform judiciously, emphasizing the importance of critical thinking alongside an open mind. They cautioned against sensationalism while sharing their extraordinary experiences, always highlighting the central theme of love's enduring power. Their work also inspired a new wave of interest in paranormal investigation, with many amateur and professional groups adopting their more holistic approach. Elara and Ben found themselves mentoring aspiring investigators, sharing their knowledge and insights gleaned from the unique case of Blackwood Manor. Life settled into a new rhythm. They continued to take on other cases, but none held the same profound impact as Blackwood. They encountered their share of genuine phenomena, as well as their fair share of elaborate hoaxes. Through it all, the lessons learned at the manor remained their guiding principles. Approach with respect, seek understanding, and never underestimate the power of human emotion. One afternoon, a renowned parapsychologist, Dr. Alistair Reed, contacted them. Dr. Reed had dedicated his life to the scientific study of paranormal phenomena and was initially skeptical of their viral videos. However, the consistency of their evidence and the emotional resonance of their story had piqued his interest. He proposed a collaboration, suggesting a joint research project at Blackwood Manor once the renovations were complete. He believed that the unique circumstances of the manor, the documented haunting, the banishment of the malevolent entity, and the restoration of the ancient wards, presented an unprecedented opportunity for scientific study. Elara and Ben were initially hesitant. They had found peace with the Blackwood Manor saga, and were wary of reopening old wounds or disturbing the delicate balance that had been restored. However, Dr. Reed's genuine scientific curiosity and his respectful approach eventually convinced them. Returning to Blackwood Manor months later felt different again. The renovations were complete, the manor standing proud and restored to its former glory, yet imbued with a palpable sense of tranquility. Dr. Reed and his team had set up sophisticated monitoring equipment throughout the building, designed to detect subtle energy fluctuations, changes in electromagnetic fields, and even trace amounts of residual emotional energy. The initial days of the research yielded intriguing but inconclusive data. There were subtle anomalies, fluctuations that defied conventional explanation, but nothing as dramatic as their previous experiences. Dr. Reed remained methodical, meticulously documenting every reading, every observation. Then, one evening, as Elara, Ben, and Dr. Reed stood in the ballroom near the restored mirror, the equipment began to register a significant spike in energy. A faint warmth filled the room, and the subtle scent of lilies returned. On one of the monitors, a faint, shimmering image began to coalesce in the reflection of the mirror. It was the indistinct form of a woman in a white gown. Dr. Reed and his team were astounded, their scientific skepticism momentarily overshadowed by the inexplicable event unfolding before their eyes. They scrambled to adjust their equipment, recording every data point. The image in the mirror didn't solidify into Eliza's form as it had before. Instead, it remained a soft, ethereal glow, a gentle presence. Then, a series of coherent energy patterns registered on the monitors, patterns that Dr. Reed's team later identified as complex emotional signatures. It was as if Eliza and Robert were briefly making their presence known, not as trapped spirits, but as echoes of the profound love that had once filled the manor, a testament to the enduring power of their bond. The energy signatures eventually faded, the warmth dissipated, and the scent of lilies vanished. But the data collected that night provided Dr. Reed and his team with groundbreaking insights into the nature of residual energy and the potential for strong emotional imprints to linger in a place. The collaborative research project continued for several months, yielding fascinating data that challenged existing scientific paradigms and opened new avenues for understanding the paranormal. Blackwood Manor, once a symbol of tragedy and fear, became a focal point for cutting-edge research into the intersection of human emotion, energy, and the mysteries of consciousness. Elara and Ben, while still investigators at heart, found a new appreciation for the scientific rigor that Dr. Reed brought to the field. They learned to bridge the gap between their intuitive experiences and empirical data, further refining their approach to the paranormal. The story of Blackwood Manor, now intertwined with scientific inquiry, continued to evolve, inspiring not just belief, but also a deeper understanding of the unseen forces that shape our world. Elara and Ben's journey had come full circle, from a mysterious haunting to a miraculous resolution, and finally to a scientific exploration of the profound energies they had encountered. The manor stood as a silent testament to the enduring power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the infinite mysteries that still lay waiting to be discovered. The years that followed saw Elara and Ben solidify their position as respected figures in the field of paranormal investigation, their work at Blackwood Manor serving as a landmark case study. They continued to explore other hauntings and unusual phenomena, always guided by the principles of empathy, caution, and a willingness to believe in the extraordinary. Their collaboration with Dr. Reed blossomed into a lasting friendship and a series of groundbreaking publications that bridged the gap between anecdotal evidence and scientific data. The research at Blackwood Manor provided compelling evidence for the existence of residual emotional energy and the potential for intense human experiences to leave lasting imprints on a location. Blackwood Manor itself became a place of quiet contemplation. The Historical Society maintained it as a site of historical interest, acknowledging its tragic past but also celebrating the love story that had ultimately brought peace. Visitors often remarked on the manor's serene atmosphere, a stark contrast to its earlier reputation. Some even claimed to feel a faint sense of warmth, or the delicate fragrance of lilies in the ballroom, a subtle reminder of the love that had once filled its halls. Elara and Ben occasionally returned to Blackwood, not as investigators, but as quiet observers. They would walk through the familiar rooms, remembering the fear, the mystery, and ultimately, the profound sense of hope they had experienced there. The manor served as a constant reminder that even in the face of darkness, love and compassion could prevail. Their viral videos continued to be shared and discussed, their story evolving from a simple ghost hunt into a multifaceted narrative about love, loss, the battle between good and evil, and the potential for miracles in the most unexpected places. The nighttime stories for adults had become a legend in its own right, inspiring countless others to explore the mysteries that lay just beyond the realm of everyday perception. As the years passed, Elara and Ben remained a steadfast team, their bond strengthened by the extraordinary experiences they had shared. They continued to approach each new case with the same blend of scientific curiosity and open-hearted empathy that had guided them at Blackwood Manor. They understood that the paranormal wasn't just about spooks and shadows. It was often a reflection of human emotion, a lingering echo of joy, sorrow, and the enduring power of the human spirit. And so, their journey continued, illuminated by the lessons learned in a haunted manor where love had defied death and darkness had been overcome by light. The story of Blackwood Manor served as a beacon, reminding them and the world that, even in the deepest mysteries, the most profound truths often lie in the connections we share and the enduring power of love.